Good afternoon, Bookfighters. It is Tuesday, March 1st, and if you're watching this, that means that my camera and my memory card are not broken anymore, which is a really good thing, because they were broken last week, which is why there was no video, and there was no makeup video, because they were still broken. But I fixed it, I hope. So if you're seeing this, it's fixed. So, yeah. Alright, so the week prior to last, I read The Vampire Lestat by Anne Rice, which is my favorite book, pretty much ever. And it was really cool to read it again. You know, I made this whole video last week about this, and I talked about it for like 12 minutes. It was ridiculous, and I got all emotional about it. And then it decided not to work, and all the technology crap happened, and now I just don't want to talk about it anymore. So I'm sorry, I'm just not feeling it with this book anymore. I wish you could have seen that video where I was really excited. Such is life. But yeah. So I read it, and it was good, and it felt good to read my favorite book again. Yeah, just not feeling it. I'm sorry. I talked about the Vampire Chronicles and stuff before, so you should understand how I feel about that book. But the book that I read this past week, that I didn't get to tell you all that I was reading because the video didn't work, I had so much to say, and I'm so angry. But the book that I read was Without You, a memoir of love lost in the musical Rent by Anthony Rapp. It's his autobiography. Anthony plays Mark in the original Broadway production of Rent. He's on the soundtrack. He's in the movie. And he's just an all-around amazing person. I wanted to read this for a really long time, and I finally got it from the library, and it was just, it blew my mind. Like, there's just so much that I didn't know about him. You know, it's crazy, and I feel so honored to have met him before. I wish I had read this before I met him. I would have had so much more to say to him than, "Can I have a hug?" And yeah, just, I can't believe what an amazing person he is. I cried like 5 or 6 times, I think. It was really emotional, and I think reading this has given me not only just, you know, new perspectives on life and loss and you know, grief, but also really given a whole new layer to Rent, which I already enjoyed so much. But just following his story through, you know, all the dress rehearsals and the workshop productions, and then Jonathan's death, and which was so emotional, and just him and Daphne, who played Mimi, and what great friends they were, and once it got on Broadway, and going through everybody's last nights, and when Daphne left, and when Jessie left, and when Adina left, and it was so emotional. And being such a theater dork, you know, it was just crazy. And, you know, talking about closing nights and how emotional closing nights are, and I totally understand. And it's just, it was really, oh, man, it was so good. So good. And then there's, on the back, it was so adorable, there's a review from Jonathan Larson, who wrote the play. If you're not a Rent head like I am, his dad wrote a review for Anthony's book, and it's really cute how much of a family they are. And there's pictures of his mom and stuff, and there's a whole section of it where he's dealing with, his mom has cancer, and then she died. Oh God, it was so emotionally charged. It was crazy. I was a wreck. I finished it at like 2 in the morning, and I was just, I didn't know what to do. I felt lost. Like, what do, it was crazy. So yeah, That's what I read. If you are a fan of Rent, you should read this. If you're not a fan of Rent, you should read this. If you can't read, you should learn how to read so you can read this. It's probably the best autobiography I've ever read. So yeah, that was that book. This week I'm going to read The Lost Hero by Rick Riordan. Riordan. I finally figured out how to say his last name, Riordan. So that's what I'm going to read, finally, because I've been putting it off pretty much since the day I bought it. So I'm finally going to get around to reading that, which is going to be awesome. Dan, you asked a question yesterday. If there were questions from the week before that I probably answered in my other video, I can't remember them, so I'll answer them next time, but I do remember Dan's question from yesterday, which was, I believe, do we have any books that tell a story that is more than just the story in the book, which was kind of went along with my questions, and the answer is yes, I do, but I don't have it with me, which is unfortunate. It's my original copy of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone that I got in 4th grade, because we had this thing at my elementary school called Accelerated Reader, and it was basically this program where they bribed kids to get them to read more. So every book in like the school library was worth a certain amount of points. So like Charlotte's Web was worth like 5 points. So what you would do is you would go in and you would read Charlotte's Web, and then you would tell your teacher or your librarian that, hey, I read Charlotte's Web, it's worth 5 points, I want my 5 points, and they would ask you like 3 questions about the book just to make sure that you'd actually read it, and then they would give you your 5 points, and then they put it into the computer, and it kept track of all your points, and so, you know, the next week you'd read a book that was worth 10 points, so then you'd have 15 points, and as your points accumulated, you got stuff. So like, for 5 points you get like a pencil, and then 10 points you get a t-shirt, and then as you got higher and higher you got like cooler stuff, like I think at like 50 points you got a bronze medal, and 100 points you got a silver medal, and 150 points you got a gold medal, and you got pizza parties and all kinds of other cool stuff. And then like at the very, very top at like 200, like 300 points, you got to be principal for a day, which pretty much just meant that they made you do all kinds of paperwork, which sucked. So it wasn't really all that interesting, but it sounded cool. And I was 3rd place in my whole school in 4th grade. And I remember I was leaving class in 4th grade, and the lights were all off, and the teacher was holding the door open, and I was all kind of upset because I was slipping in my points because I hadn't read anything in like a week, and then my friend had read like 2 books, so she was ahead of me, and it was pissing me off. And I was walking by these big baskets of books that my teacher had on the tables in our classroom, and just kind of laying right on top, like a message, like perfectly just laying right on top of everything, was a paperback copy of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. And I remember walking by it and being like, oh, that book, because I never wanted to read Harry Potter. It was too mainstream or something when I was that young. Stupid. But I walked by it, and then I turned around and was like, wait. And I went over and I picked up the book and I opened it to the front cover, and right there on the front cover, on the inside of the front cover, was a huge 12 written in pink highlighter and circled, and it had my teacher's name over the top of it because it was her book, which meant that it was worth 12 accelerated reader points, which was crazy. It was crazy amount of points. Like, I think the highest were like 15, so 12 was like, what? And 15 was like Little Women status, and that was in 4th grade, so yeah. So I was like, 12 accelerated reader points? I don't even care if this book sucks. I'm gonna get it for the points. And so I picked it up, and the rest is history, really. And I still have that copy, so pretty much every time I go to read that copy, that's the story that comes to mind, more so than the actual story in the book. And just, you know, kind of that euphoric sense of the nostalgia of when I found that book, and it was just kind of this perfect moment. So yeah, I hope that answered your question, because if not, I just told you all a completely useless story about my childhood that you probably don't care about. But yeah, so that's all that's going on. I have a question for you, since my book that I read last week was about musicals and Rent. My question for you is, what is your favorite musical? You only have to pick one, but if you particularly like musicals, you can do your top 3. So my top 3 are Aida, Rent, and Next to Normal. So those are my top 3. I answered my own question. So in your videos, tell me what your favorite musical is, please. That's my question for you. And yeah, so I don't know. I haven't really heard anything from Sarah. I don't know if you have a video tomorrow, but I hope you do. Maybe. Please. Miss you. I miss you a lot. So you need to have a video soon, so that I can stop missing you. Alright. I probably talked for way too long because I told you that story. But yeah, so I will see all of you next Tuesday, and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow, Sarah. If not, I'll see you, Katie, on Thursday, and the rest of you have a good week. I'll see you on Tuesday again. Fairly well, Bookfighters.